As evening fell, I hurried back to the dormitory with a bundle of vegetables when an unknown call came through.
I've kidnapped Jennifer. If you want to save your sister, have your father, who's abroad, come to Falling Forest Manor alone. You have 3 days. If you call the police, you'll only see her lifeless body.
The call ended, leaving my mind in a daze. Last night, Jennifer had just celebrated my birthday with me.
Hey little brother, it's your birthday today. Do you have any wishes?
Jennifer lit a sky lantern, the flame growing stronger as it slowly drifted away from her hand.
A wish, huh? I wish I could protect my family. Sis, what's your wish?
I smiled at her.
Protecting family, huh? Then I wish you grow up quickly so that the bad guys are too scared to come near us.
We laughed heartily. I asked her why she suddenly remembered to celebrate my birthday.
Why did you suddenly remember to celebrate my birthday, sis?
Do I need a reason to celebrate your birthday? Just spreading some warmth.
Her words were simple, but they warmed my heart. My mother was involved in illegal activities and was sent to prison by my father. After a fallout with my father a few years ago, I was kicked out. He then disappeared abroad, leaving only a contact number with Jennifer. And now, the kidnapper wanted me to contact my father. There was no reason for me to reach out.
Could it be? Was Jennifer indirectly reminding me that this kidnapper was the masked man who tried to harm me 3 years ago? She revealed my information to the criminal, not to notify my father, but to warn me to be cautious.
I swallowed hard, clenching my fists tightly. I sent a message to someone named John. This person had extensive information channels. He might know about Falling Forest Manor. A quarter of an hour later, a reply came.
The forces behind Falling Forest Manor are significant. The police might have their informants there. Don't report it lightly. It could endanger Jennifer's life. Try to buy some time. I'm heading over from the neighboring province now.
I stomped my foot in frustration.
Was I supposed to just watch Jennifer die without any information? No! I refuse to accept that. I decided to take a risk and go to Falling Forest Manor alone. This time, it wasn't just about saving Jennifer. I also wanted to resolve the incident from 3 years ago.
Driving the jeep swiftly along the mountain path, my mind was filled with countless thoughts. 3 years ago.
Father, why did you send my mother to prison? Were you afraid of being implicated?
Son, you need to understand that drug money is untouchable. Do you know how many families were destroyed because of what your mother did?
But I heard that the Charles Group was on the verge of bankruptcy at that time. My mother had no choice but to take those jobs. Without her, there wouldn't be the Charles Group today. My mother was guilty of drug trafficking, but it shouldn't have been you who testified against her. You used her as a stepping stone, and once the group was established, you discarded her like trash, didn't you?
A heavy slap landed on my face. I was in my second year of high school then, and he never gave me a penny after that. The car continued on. Although Falling Forest Manor was hidden in the remote mountains, the mountains were centrally located among several satellite cities. On the bumpy road, luxury cars could often be seen passing by. 2 hours later, I rolled down the window, taking a deep breath as I looked at the not-so-glamorous scenery.
Let's see what secrets are hidden in these mountains.
Entering the manor, the interior wasn't as luxurious as I had imagined. If I had to describe it in one word, it would be plain. At a glance, even the entertainment facilities were quite sparse. But the occasional women passing by caught my attention. Their attire and demeanor constantly reminded me that this place was not simple. I saw a man with slicked back hair and a suit, politely escorting 2 ladies out. Just as the man was about to leave, I called out to him.
Excuse me, could you tell me about the entertainment options here?
The man glanced at my attire, clearly uninterested, and turned to leave.
This is just an ordinary manor. You might want to explore the nearby mountains and waters.
Sigh, Who would have thought that the son of the CEO of Charles Group couldn't find a place to have fun? How boring.
The man's retreating figure suddenly paused, and he turned back with a smiling face.
Sir, I do know some places where young masters like to play. Can I see your ID, please?
I handed him my ID, and he scanned it with a device. He half bowed and pointed to an elevator with a keypad lock.
Mr. Jack, please this way.
The elevator required a card to operate. Once inside, I saw him press the button for the third basement level. In the elevator, the man introduced himself.
I am William, a junket agent here, responsible for bringing clients to the underground casino.
I pinched myself to stay focused. The elevator doors opened to reveal a casino with a European royal decor style. William led me towards the center of the hall. I saw a woman sipping champagne, puffing her cheeks and blowing on the cards in her hand, loudly exclaiming,
Player, 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 damn, it's the banker again. What bad luck. Junket agent, give me another 500,000 chips.
I shook my head. Casinos thrive on probability. They don't fear you winning, they fear you not coming. It's almost certain that the longer you play, the more you lose. A charming woman in a cheongsam at the front desk scanned my ID with a machine.
Mr. Jack, welcome to the hall. Given the scale of Charles Group, we can offer you 200,000 A-chips for entertainment. However, A-chips cannot be directly exchanged for money, but any winnings can be converted to cash. Enjoy your time.
I accepted the A-chips and chatted with her, praising the hidden depths of Luolin Manor. Casually, I mentioned that I was originally here to find Jennifer and asked if she had seen her. I noticed William seemed to want to say something but held back.
We have various games available, such as Baccarat, 3-card poker, and dice.
What about that opaque section in the center of the hall?
Oh, that's the VIP room, where the minimum stake is 5 million. Our big boss is in there today.
He told me the big boss was not only the owner of this casino but also a former gambling legend in Macau. My interest piqued. Ignoring William's advice, I used the 200,000 A-chips as an entry fee and successfully entered the VIP room. Just as I was about to enter, I saw a man with a Rolex watch coming out, looking dejected. I opened the door and saw a man who appeared to be around 35 years old, lounging lazily in a chair, tossing a gold coin with his right hand. His secretary was packing up luggage and weights, clearly preparing to leave. I introduced myself and asked if he was the boss here. The man looked at me, nodded, and then glanced curiously at William, the chip handler beside me.
It has nothing to do with him. I'm here to find you. You're well informed. I want to know if you have any information about someone named Jennifer.
The man across from me suddenly laughed, speaking with a distinct Hong Kong accent.
I do know Jennifer from the Charles Group, but unfortunately, I can't tell you.
The secretary finished packing, and they were about to leave via a private elevator.
What would it take for you to tell me?
The boss stopped and, with his Hong Kong accent, said,
Unless you play a game with me. If you win, I'll tell you the information. If you lose, you owe me your life.
I frowned. It would be easy for him to get rid of me here, but since he was interested, I decided to play alone. I pulled up a chair and sat down.
Stop wasting time. Let's start.
William, the chip handler, rubbed his face with his right hand and shook his head with his eyes closed. The boss sat across from me.
Let's keep it simple. We'll play dice.
I requested that William be the one to roll the dice. The boss calmly nodded at my request, as if I had no chance of winning. After shaking the dice, the boss stepped aside, lit a cigar, and took a puff with a calm demeanor, shaking his head. He had an aura about him, and even from a distance, his gaze was oppressive. I swallowed hard and took a deep breath. The dice game was simple: bet on whether the final number would be high, low, or three of a kind. It was clearly a game of probability, yet he was so confident. Could it be?
William, roll the dice.
William picked up the dice, paused, and with a half-smile, said,
3 sixes, James wins.
The boss turned around, looked at the betting area, and the muscles on the right side of his face twitched slightly. He clapped his hands for me and had his secretary make me a cup of tea.
Why did you bet on 3 of a kind? Don't you know the probabilities?
I know the probabilities, but I trust logic more. If you couldn't control the roll, you wouldn't be so confident.
Well, you're indeed a madman. Tell me, what do you want to know?
I took the tea, sipped it, and found it bitter at first, but with a lingering sweetness.
I want to know about the person who kidnapped my sister, his past and present.
The boss frowned and began to recall.
That person frequents a suburban villa near the Four Spirits Lake in Luolin Mountain. Those who have seen him call him Frank.
I gripped the porcelain teacup tightly, the tea leaves inside swirling with my anger. 3 years ago, this person tried to harm me, and now he's the one who kidnapped my sister. A mysterious man whose appearance is unknown, always wearing a string of prayer beads on his left hand. It was midnight, and there was a faint rumble of thunder in the sky. My jeep pulled into a hidden corner near a villa on the outskirts of Siling Lake. Based on Jason's description, I concluded that Frank had no friends. 3 years ago, Jason, the gambling god, was developing an underground casino but had no channels or clientele in the inland. Frank introduced him to his mentor, who had many connections, and the underground casino quickly took off. Frank said he would need a favor in return, and Jason agreed. A year later, Frank killed his mentor for profit. The mentor's followers felt betrayed and quickly dispersed. Just yesterday, Frank had approached Jason, asking him to set up a gambling game. When I asked what kind of game, Jason just smiled and said nothing. Taking advantage of a thunderclap, I broke the window glass. Under the cover of darkness, I sneaked into the eerie villa. Frank was a ruthless person, and dealing with such a cunning individual was terrifying. But I was more afraid of losing her. I saw a faint light coming from a side room on the second floor. I moved slowly up the stairs, trying not to make any noise. 15 minutes later, I was at the door of the side room. It was already midnight, and I pressed my ear to the door to listen. Apart from the intermittent thunder outside, I heard the sound of a woman crying inside. After confirming there were no other sounds, I gently pushed the door open. In the dim light of the room, I saw Jennifer tied to a wooden post, tears still in her eyes.
Don't make a sound. He's in the next room. He has a weapon.
My heart sank. I carefully watched my steps as I slowly approached Jennifer. Up close, I could see the numerous wounds on my sister's body. Frank had clearly used various methods to try to break her. Jennifer's hands were tied with thick hemp ropes. The midnight silence outside and inside felt like the calm before the storm. I could hear my own breathing. Each time thunder struck, I quickly cut the ropes. The sound of cutting mixed with the thunder. Just as I was about to finish cutting Jennifer's ropes, the thunder stopped. I waited for a long time, but the next thunderclap didn't come. My sister signaled with her freed hand, telling me not to rush, it would rain soon. Suddenly, I heard a noise behind me. I quickly turned around but saw nothing. Upon closer inspection, I realized there was a black cat crouching in the corner. The cat, with its fat head and big eyes, stared at me with an empty gaze, as if foretelling doom. The cat's stare gave me the creeps, and I cursed inwardly, vowing never to keep a black cat. Moments later, it started to drizzle. Taking advantage of the sound of the rain, I finally freed my sister from the ropes.
Be careful!
The black cat let out a piercing yell. Just as I turned to glare at the cat, a man with a sinister face struck me with a club, smiling wickedly. I lost consciousness and fell to the ground. A bucket of icy cold water was splashed over me. Groggily, I opened my eyes to find both Jennifer and me tied up. I recognized the face filled with menace. It was Frank.
So, you found this place. I underestimated you.
He punched me in the stomach. The intense pain spread instantly, and I spat out a mouthful of blood.
Come at me! Leave my sister out of this.
Frank grabbed my throat, making it hard to breathe.
Out of it? In 2003, I was 13, living comfortably. Then what happened? Your mother got caught for trafficking, and her husband, Charles, got away. The Charles Group took over the trafficking channels and cleaned them up. My parents got implicated and died in the raid. My parents were honest business people, and your mother led them astray. Anyone related to Charles must die. Do you think saying out of it can wash away this hatred?
He punched me hard in the face again. It felt like being hit by a lead ball. I saw double for a moment. It was around 1 a.m., with light rain outside. The dim light inside the villa made Frank's face look even more sinister. Just as I was about to pass out, another bucket of cold water was thrown on my face. For a moment, I thought maybe death wasn't so scary after all. Frank turned to Jennifer, lifting her chin with his right hand.
Your brother came here alone. What was his plan?
You don't dare go after the police who killed your parents. You only pick on the weak. You should be called little dog.
Frank slapped her repeatedly. Seeing this, I couldn't hold back any longer.
Enough! I know my father's contact information. Come here, and I'll tell you.
Frank stopped and walked over to me, his sinister smile still on his face. I spat blood at him.
You think I'd tell you anything?
His expression didn't change, but the veins on his neck and body bulged. Then, his fists rained down on me like a storm. Blood poured from my nose and mouth, but I kept my eyes fixed on Frank. After about 15 minutes, he vented his anger and walked to a wooden table, pulling out a dagger with dark golden patterns.
Contact your father. Have him come to Luolin Manor in 2 days to meet Jason. Otherwise, I'll kill you.
Don't listen to him, Jennifer. He wants our father and Jason to gamble, using you and the Charles Group's shares as stakes.
Frank squinted, probably wondering how I knew all this. But then, a twisted smile appeared on his face. He flicked his wrist, and the dagger flew through the air, slicing my left hand. My left pinky finger fell to the ground. Jennifer cried and screamed at the sight.
Give me Charles's contact information. If you don't, I'll cut off his hand next.
Sis, do you know? When I got the call about your abduction, I had a moment where I didn't want to save you. But then I realized I was more afraid of losing you. I found myself willing to take risks to save you. Even if today is my end, I would still choose to come without hesitation. But scum like him must be locked up. He wants our lives and Charles's power. How can we let him succeed? Jennifer, even if I die, never give him our father's information.
Frank initially thought I was persuading my sister to give in and listened with interest. But as I continued, he got furious and punched me hard in the face. Another tooth fell out.
Let's see if you can still talk with your right hand broken.
He raised a knife, and in that moment, I saw a reflection behind Frank. I smiled and spat the broken tooth at his eye. He blocked it with the knife, but then a flying knife pierced his thigh. Frank tumbled to the side of the table. He looked at the person with disbelief, scanning up and down, as if he had seen a ghost. Because he saw another James. That's right, I'm not James, I just look like him. Since the deal with Jack in 2009, I've been using the name James for 3 years. I swallowed hard, clenching my fists tightly. I sent a message to someone named John, who had extensive information channels. He might know about Falling Forest Manor. A quarter of an hour later, a reply came.
The forces behind Falling Forest Manor are significant. The police might have their informants there. Don't report it lightly, it could endanger Jennifer's life. Try to buy some time. I'm heading over from the neighboring province now.
I stomped my foot in frustration. Was I supposed to just watch Jennifer suffer without any information? No. I refused to accept that. I decided to take a risk and go to Falling Forest Manor alone. This time, it wasn't just about saving Jennifer, I also wanted to resolve the incident from 3 years ago. I swallowed hard, clenching my fists tightly. I sent a message to John, someone with extensive information channels. He might know about Falling Forest Manor. A quarter of an hour later, a reply came.
The forces behind Falling Forest Manor are significant. The police might have their informants there. Don't report it lightly, it could endanger Jennifer's life. Try to buy some time. I'm heading over from the neighboring province now.
I stomped my foot in frustration. Was I supposed to just watch Jennifer suffer without any information? No! I refused to accept that. I decided to take a risk and go to Falling Forest Manor alone. This time, it wasn't just about saving Jennifer, I also wanted to resolve the incident from 3 years ago. A call came through.
Sam, I shot out his car tire with a revolver. I'm on the mountain road near Luolin Manor. Hurry up, I can't handle this lunatic alone.
James had told me before about his past encounter.
On August 19, 2009, during my second year of high school, I visited Hongshan Temple. On the way back, I was blocked on a bridge. The driver was killed, and I was injured by a mysterious man with prayer beads. I jumped into a river to save my life. If it weren't for David and his granddaughter Emily, who found me the next morning, I would have been dead.
At 4 a.m., I was speeding along the mountain road in my Jeep. Through the distant lights, I saw 2 cars in hot pursuit. This was a zigzag mountain road. Once past this section, there would be a fork, making it harder to follow. I sharply turned the steering wheel and floored the gas pedal. The car crashed through the guardrail and flew out by inertia, blocking the road ahead.
Hold on, James.
He didn't slow down. In the last 3 seconds before the collision, he jumped out of the car. I also jumped out of the window a few seconds before the cars collided and exploded. Rolling on the ground 3 times, the burning pain made me even more focused. Frank slid down the steep cliffside, and I, covered in scratches, chased after him. We crossed a stream and arrived at the shore of Four Spirits Lake. The rain poured down. By the lake, there was a grave. Frank was waiting for us by the lake.
How are you holding up?
I patted my left chest with my right hand, indicating I was fine. Frank twirled a dark golden dagger charm in the air, smiling intently. After crossing the stream and in the rain, the revolver was no longer usable. James and I approached from the left and right. He stood still, calmly waiting for us. The rain intensified, but it couldn't wash away the anger in our hearts. James charged first, his brass knuckles flashing like lightning. Frank dodged to the side and was about to strike when I stabbed at him with a dagger from the side. Frank kicked me away, and I stumbled to the ground. James punched him in the face, the brass knuckles cutting Frank's skin.
Do you know? After losing my parents, I followed my knife-wielding mentor for almost 10 years. 2 years ago, I killed him and buried.
James looked at Frank, who was sitting on the ground.
Killing for the sake of killing is a ridiculous belief.
He spat in disdain and continued cursing.
In 2003, I said something wrong at a banquet, revealing my mother's involvement in dubious activities. My father sent her to prison. I felt guilty at the time. Later, I realized that even if I hadn't said anything, she would have been caught eventually. So now, I believe I did the right thing.
Frank sat on the grave, with his hands hidden behind his back. He thought we were at a disadvantage because we were bound by rules. He dared to take lives, but we couldn't. With hesitation came restraint. As he spoke, Frank swung his right hand.
Watch out.
I dodged to the side, but Frank's move was a feint. He threw a handful of dirt from his master's grave. His left hand swiftly flung a knife, which sliced through the air and rain, embedding itself in James's right leg.
Your fear will continue.
With that, he jumped over the grave and disappeared. I quickly followed. James, struggling with his injured leg, tossed me the handcuffs.
Sam, come back alive.
I nodded and went after him. On August 24, 2009, I took my critically ill mother to seek help from David, an old traditional doctor.
I can't do much. The best chance for your mother is to go to the best hospital for treatment, but I know the costs are high.
While I was in distress, I saw James, who looked remarkably like me, with bandages on him at David's side door.
Hey, come with me to the backyard. We need to talk.
After a brief conversation, he called me to the backyard.
I'm troubled by an unknown assailant who might target my family. I want to lure them out. I know about your situation and propose a cooperation plan.
I needed money to save my mother, and he needed someone to protect his family.
I'll pay for your mother's treatment through Charles's connections, and in return, you will attend high school in my place, taking on the risk of being targeted, while we both investigate the truth behind the assassination attempts.
On the 27th of that month, as James suggested, I deliberately had a fierce argument when his father came to see me, saying hurtful things to avoid blowing my cover in front of his father. For Spirits Lake was vast, stretching for dozens of kilometers. I chased Frank to an island in the middle of the lake. Frank had an injured left leg and couldn't run as fast as I could. I tackled him, and we started grappling.
We have no real grudge, Sam. Help me eliminate James, and I'll give you 200,000 yuan.
Thinking of Jennifer lying in the rain, I left.
Our grudge is far from over.
Symbolically, I took out the handcuffs James had given me.
Turn yourself into the police, and our grudge will be settled.
Then there's no choice. I'll have to take you down too.
Frank suddenly lunged at me, and we continued to grapple. He grabbed my knife with his left hand, and I held onto the blade tightly with my right hand. I pushed his head into the water, and we kept rolling and struggling. At that moment, his left hand brought the knife close to my neck.
Sam, you want to protect Jennifer and your mother, but you're too weak. So, die for them.
Blood was already trickling from my neck, and my eyes were bloodshot. Memories of Jennifer releasing a red lantern for me flashed in my mind.
Today is your birthday. Do you have any wishes?
Wishes? I wish I could protect my loved ones. Sis, what's your wish?
Protecting loved ones? Then I wish you grow up quickly so that those bad guys are too scared to come near us. Sam, Mom won't live long, but I hope you live well. Remember, never lose hope, just like your father.
But Dad passed away in 2003. No one remembers him. He was a bad father. He didn't protect us.
Sam, your father was an outstanding anti-drug officer. He protected not only us but everyone. He lives on in our hearts.
At the brink of death, I recalled the painful memories I had tried to forget. In that moment, I was filled with strength.
I live for them.
I bit down hard on my nearly dislodged canine tooth and spat it out like a blow dart. The broken tooth hit Frank's eye, causing him to instinctively reach up to rub it. In that instant, I roared, grabbed the knife with my bloody hands, and slashed his neck. The rain continued to fall as Frank clutched his gushing neck and trembled on the ground. I, too, finally exhausted my last bit of strength and fell into a deep sleep.
Everyone dies, but some people live on in our hearts. As long as someone remembers you, you never truly die. I believe this.